Everyone. Okay, hi folks. I am Rachel with the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Thank you all for joining us as we kick off our first 2022 Meet the Candidate event. I see a lot of folks here who have engaged in these events many times throughout last year, and I see some new folks here too. So welcome to new folks and the oldies as well. So, first, very quickly, I know we're all feeling a mixture of probably some pretty negative emotions from what happened last night. And I'll share for me that I'm trying to channel that and that sadness and that anger into something or someone who inspires me. And so, when I think about all we face, it's easy to let that overshadow the good stuff. So I look forward to our weekly Meet the Candidate events because it gives me something to feel positive about. And it adds a little bit of hope to my week. So I hope this time that we spend together does some version of that for you too. So we are very happy to have Attica Scott from Kentucky's 3rd District here with us tonight. Very quickly, for those who haven't yet, if you could please turn on your cameras if you're comfortable with it. When you have a question for Attica, please just send it in the chat. If you want to throw in your hometown and your state, that's great. My colleague Manju will send you a direct chat to let you know if we're coming to you. We'll request for you to unmute, and then you can ask Attica your question yourself. And you can feel free to send the question at any point. We try to be mindful of everyone's schedules and time, so please bear with me if I can't get your question, but we are going to do our best. And one final note, while we've designed these events to be free, we do hope that if you find yourself nodding a lot throughout this event, if you find yourself smiling a lot, if you find yourself doing a cheers to yourself or with us on the camera and feeling inspired, we do hope that you'll consider chipping in to help Attica's campaign. If that's something you can consider, Attica, everyone at the P-Trip, we would all deeply appreciate that. So with that, let me turn it over to our P-Trip co-founder, Dr. Stephanie Taylor.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you to everybody for joining our call tonight. I am so excited to introduce Attica Scott, who is running for Congress in Kentucky's 3rd Congressional District. We've known Attica for many years. We supported her when she ran for Kentucky General Assembly in 2016, when she defeated a 34-year incumbent and became the first Black woman elected to the Kentucky General Assembly this century. She is a lifelong organizer. She gets things done. When she served as a council member on the Louisville Metro Council, Attica led successful efforts to raise the minimum wage, to ban the box on job applications. During her 5 years in the Kentucky State Legislature, when she was dealing with a supermajority GOP, she filed over 80 bills, including a bill banning no-knock search warrants, a bill to reduce the high maternal mortality rate of Black women, and a resolution to pass the Green New Deal. And here at the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, we always say we want to support organizers for Congress, people who will organize their colleagues to advance progressive priorities, not just sit on the sidelines. And Attica is the very definition of an organizer, and she has been her whole life. I can't wait for you to hear what she has to say. So let me now give a very warm welcome to Attica Scott.
Attica, you might be muted. Attica?
Attica, I think you are still muted.
It wouldn't let me unmute. It wouldn't let me unmute. Thank you. I appreciate y'all so much. And thank you, Rachel and Stephanie and Manju and the entire PCCC team for hosting this candidate meet and greet. PCCC has been such a great supporter of our campaign. And I want to give a shout out to my campaign manager, Nicole Anglian-Desjardins, who's on the call as well. And, PCCC and I have been down with one another since really, I think my 2nd term as a state representative. So I will say as a progressive Black woman candidate in Kentucky that it matters to me to have support from organizations like the PCCC. And I see some familiar faces from Kentucky on here as well. So shout out to the home state for representing. Our campaign has received donations from 49 states, y'all, including the District of Columbia. And I believe that PCCC is part of the reason why. And we just need to bring in one donor, just one person from North Dakota, and then we'll have the entire country covered. So I'm gonna just say it now, y'all. If you know anybody in North Dakota, tell them to send $5 our way, and then we will have all 50 states. So again, I appreciate every one of you for showing up in support of our campaign for Congress. It matters that people across the country are engaged and working to literally change the face of Kentucky politics. And if you've been following what's happening at the federal level, particularly in the Senate, but we've got some folks in Congress as well from Kentucky, it's far past time that we do the work of changing the face of Kentucky politics. So some of you might know that my parents named me Attica in honor of the incarcerated people who fought for justice inside Attica Correctional Facility in 1971. And the Attica documentary that came out last year is now up for an Oscar. I've tried to live up to the name of my parents' vision of a better world for all of us. I grew up in poverty in the projects of Beach Terrace in West Louisville. And at one point I lived with my granny, who died last month at the age of 93. And her spirit guides me today as I continue to confront patriarchy and privilege, which I know she faced in her day. When my constituents and neighbors tell me about their lived challenges, they know that I will listen with empathy and take action, because those have been my challenges too. I have the experience to serve in Congress. As a member of Louisville Metro Council and as a state representative, I've led on policies like the Green New Deal, universal basic income, removing taxes from menstrual hygiene products, doula support services for pregnant people who are incarcerated, and protecting LGBTQ+ veterans. I fought to end no-knock warrants. I was on the front lines day after day, along with Nicole at Injustice Square Park in downtown Louisville in 2020. My daughter and I were tear gassed and arrested, and both of those nights were terrifying and traumatic. I fought for better maternal and infant health care. Black pregnant people are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth than white pregnant people. I've raised my voice for abortion access and reproductive rights, particularly with the amendment on our ballot here in Kentucky in November that will ban abortion across our state. My name will be on this same ballot with your help, and with your help, we can power people to the polls who want to defeat that anti-choice amendment and who want to elect a woman to Congress, the first Democratic woman in Kentucky's history. Did y'all hear me? I would be the first Democratic woman in Kentucky's history to serve in Congress. And by the way, I'm currently the only woman in this race. On Metro Council, I passed the historic minimum wage increase and a unanimous ordinance to ban the box on job applications, as well as a unanimous resolution to restore voting rights. And now it's time for me to take that same energy and experience to DC. Together, we can build a country that prioritizes equity, fairness, and justice, but I need your help to make that happen. We have never had a Black woman representative from Kentucky in Congress. When we launched our campaign, we were running against a 16-year incumbent. He announced his retirement 3 months after we launched, and now it is an open seat. And I have one challenger so far who's been able to pull in big fundraising numbers, mostly from folks outside of Kentucky. As of the most recent FEC filing deadline, y'all, my opponent announced that he had raised over $700,000. I can tell you our campaign is nowhere near that much money. We have raised over $150,000 so far, and I'm proud of that. Our average donation is $67, where my opponent's average donation is $700. We know that money helps to win political races, and that's why we're here tonight. We also know that when AOC ran for Congress against an incumbent, she was outraised 10-1 in the primary. She won. We're not confused by the need to gain some ground in fundraising. So here's what we're doing. I turned 50 at the end of this month, and we have a goal to raise $50,000 for my 50th birthday. We've gotten creative with our asks and our events. We've also been doing the work, y'all, to reach out to voters. We're phone banking and canvassing. We've already knocked on close to 2,000 doors. We're hosting virtual events like this one and town halls that will also be live streamed. We've got a fundraising committee that's all in for us. And we know that voters are the ones who will win this race for us. We've seen how engaged our community is because they are ready to knock down the doors that keep women like me from serving in Congress. So now's the time, y'all. I need your help. I need your support. Let's make it happen. We can do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Attica. Okay, folks, so we have a bunch of questions rolling on in. So we are going to go to our friend Joni Prentice right there in Louisville, Kentucky. Joni, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself, please, and ask Attica your question.
Hi, Representative Scott, and I'm so glad to be here, and I've followed your career for a long, long time. I think I know the answer to this question, but I want other people to understand exactly what you stand for and how you'll serve in Congress. So what will your legislative priorities be when you get to Washington? And then the second part of the question is, will you look for bipartisan support, and do you have any strategies? That's been a big stumbling block, I think, for the legislature or for the Congress. So what are your ideas?
Thank you so much for that question, Joni. I appreciate you and the work that you do in Kentucky because I know that you are active and working to make a change as well. So to the first part of your question, I will continue to work on issues like maternal health. I know that the Omnibus bill is something that people like Congresswoman Lauren Underwood has championed and supported for years now, and she's been able to start getting pieces of that passed. And I look forward to adding my voice and the experience of Kentuckians to that conversation, and addressing issues like pregnant people who are incarcerated needing support to make it through a healthy and safe pregnancy. So that's one issue that I definitely want to address. I want to address the issue of making sure that people who've been unjustly tried and convicted, when they get out, that they're able to get compensation from the state. That's an issue that we can address at the federal level for sure. There are other issues that I think are important for us to lift up and address at the federal level, like making sure that we codify abortion access. We have to make sure that people have access to every form of health care, including abortion access. So those are just some of the issues that I want to make sure that I work on at the federal level. And to your question, Joni, about how to get bipartisan support, I'll start by saying that I definitely want to work on getting support across the aisle for these issues and many other issues. I also know that I'm very clear that I will not allow anyone to dehumanize me or any of the communities that I represent. I saw someone ask in the chat about Mitch McConnell's comments last night about Black folks not being Americans. There are some things that I don't think we should tolerate, and I'm not going to tolerate them. I've not tolerated them as a council member or as a state rep, and I won't tolerate it in Congress because you and other people deserve better. You deserve someone who's going to speak up about comments like that and make it clear that they're unacceptable. But I will say this. You're right. The Kentucky State Legislature with the super majority GOP has been extremely difficult for any Democrats to get anything passed in this legislature. I've been here going on 6 years, y'all, and only 3 bills by Black people have even been heard in committee. I had my first one heard last year. That's a shame, absolutely a shame. And people across Kentucky are horrified about that. But when I served on Metro Council, the reason I was able to get unanimous support for the resolution to restore voting rights and unanimous support for the bill to ban the box or take the question off of job applications about whether or not someone has a felony conviction is because I went to every single one of my Republican colleagues on Louisville Metro Council and talked to them about those issues. I am a woman of faith, and I spoke to them as a woman of faith, that it is our calling to make sure that people have second and third chances and fourth and fifth chances if they need them, and that we are not called to judge people, but instead we're called to be servants to make a difference in people's lives. And those kind of conversations made a difference for many of my Republican colleagues, and that's why we were able to get that unanimous support. So, Joni, just want to let you know that I'm going to do that work when I get to Congress and have those conversations with my colleagues and make sure that I bring the lived experience of Kentuckians to debates in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Attica. Okay, next question. Our friend here we have Jamil. Jamil, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to please unmute yourself, sir. And what is your question for Attica? Jamil? Okay, I will ask it on Jamil's behalf. Attica, Jamil says, I can't give money at this time. As a Black man here in Chicago working in construction, I cannot get and keep employment for myself. But how else might I help?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you're not able to get and keep employment. We know that there are many barriers that exist for Black folks and other people of color across the country in getting and keeping jobs. And that's something we have to address at every level of government, local, state, and federal. But to your question, I will say that there are a number of ways that people who are not in Kentucky can support our campaign. You can phone bank from wherever you are, y'all. And I'm sure that Nicole, and I think I just saw Ashanti drop a link in the chat to signing up to phone bank. We'll get lists to you. You'll have training, all the support that you need to make that happen. If you're on social media, post up on social media that I'm running for Congress and we need to change the face of Kentucky politics. And if you have family members, friends, other folks that you can send an email to with a donation link, ask them to donate if you can't donate. So thanks for that question.
Thank you, Jamil. Jamil, hopefully you heard that. Attica, thank you. Okay, up next, we have a question from our friend Jeannie Davenport coming on in from social media. Attica, are you a Democrat or are you a cinema?
Oh, well, I'm not offended by you. I'm like, what a question. Ooh, child, no, I'm not a cinema. I am definitely a real Democrat. I am the Democrat that my parents believed in, the Democrat who believed in justice and equity and fairness. That's who I am.
Thank you. Okay, up next, we have Carolyn. Let's pull up Carolyn Scar here. Carolyn, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please, and ask your question to Attica.
I actually have two questions. My first question is, will you support the effective pain reliever, medical marijuana, to become legally under federal law? But my other question is, will you support the people of Haiti as they try and overthrow the false government that replaced the real government of President Aristide?
So for your first question, Carolyn, I am a huge advocate of decriminalizing and legalizing marijuana, full legalization, medical and recreational. Just this week, I was at a press conference with that very initiative that one would allow for a ballot amendment and the other would be a political measure in our legislature. So I just want to put that out there first and foremost to you, Carolyn. I've often said to my constituents, and I know people like Joni, who I represent in Kentucky House District 41, know this, that I do not believe that we can have legalization without decriminalization. I cannot go back to people where I live in the West End of Louisville and say, we legalize marijuana, but you still have that criminal record hanging over your head. So I believe we have to do both. And then to your question of Haiti, I'm very clear that as a country, we have to do better here in the United States of supporting people across the globe, that we cannot turn our eyes away from injustices, including the political overthrow of democratically elected governments or the governments that the people wanted. And so I stand with the people of Haiti, whether it's with addressing their political needs and getting back the government of the people, or whether we're talking about environmental and health and safety issues in Haiti.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for the question. Okay, up next, we are shifting gears and going to our friend Kathy coming on in from Facebook. Attica, did you always see politics as your future? or was there an instigating event that led you to run?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. No, I didn't always see politics as my future. I actually thought that I would be an attorney, and then I worked at a law school at the University of Tennessee. I'm born and raised in Louisville, but I wanted to go away to college, to a historically Black college. So I went to Appalachia, to East Tennessee, to Knoxville College, and worked at the University of Tennessee Knoxville Law School. And I was like, oh, this isn't like Perry Mason. It's not like TV. This is not what I want to do. But I got into politics because I had friends who we would sit around the table, we would talk about how we weren't being represented by people at any level of government, and that one of us is going to have to run if we want to change anything. And then they all looked at me and they said, so you're going to be the person to run because you have the least amount of skeletons in your closet. So they put all their resources and support behind me. And I first ran for school board because both of my kids were in the Jefferson County Public Schools here in Louisville, and I'm a graduate of the public school system. And less than half of the people on the school board were parents, y'all. How in the world can you be a school board, less than half of your members are parents? How can you possibly, truly, authentically represent the needs of parents, of families, of guardians, of students, and of the teachers and faculty and staff that they interact with on a daily basis? So my catalyst was my sister circle of Black and Latinx women and my children.
Thank you. Okay, up next we have Jesse Barkin. Jesse, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself. Jesse, what's your question for Attica? Jesse?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I didn't know if I was unmuted. Yeah, hi. This is a question about Social Security, and I know it's a big issue. I was wondering what kind of plans you have for people who are struggling to make it on Social Security, to pay bills, to just cover medical expenses, all of it. I mean, I know it's just not working. I know that.
It's not working, and I appreciate the question because just this week I was at the Y, and one of the older gentlemen there came up to me to share that he had just about a year or so ago applied for food stamps. He said he swallowed his pride, he applied for food stamps, and now he was having an issue with the state wanting him to pay back an overpayment and over allocation in food stamps that they gave him. And so now our office and constituent services are trying to address that issue for him, because he shouldn't have to pay back because of a mistake that the state made. That wasn't his mistake. And so I'm with you that we have to make sure that we're taking care of people in every way possible. And that's including for folks who do want to continue to maybe have some kind of part-time temporary employment, or making sure that people have access to food and supportive services, make sure that people have access to housing, supportive services, make sure that people have access to health care, and to make sure that we don't allow Republicans and conservatives to take away Social Security, that we have to figure out how do we make sure it's sustainable for the long term. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have any alternatives yet. So I do want to say that and be really honest and direct about that. But I want to learn about what other alternatives exist. What have other countries done? We can learn from other countries. We don't have all the answers in the United States. And we've obviously seen that a lot of what we try to do doesn't necessarily work. So let's learn from the places that have taken care of its neighbors in the right way.
Thank you. Up next, we have a question coming in on social media from Tom. Attica, do you support Medicare for all?
Yes, I support Medicare for all, and I have for years. I always show up in Louisville and other parts of Kentucky when folks are marching and rallying for Medicare for all, because it's clear to me that it's the best path forward. I will say one of the first political jobs that I had was knocking on doors in what's the predominantly white and wealthier part of Louisville, the East End, trying to raise money to send someone to DC to be a lobbyist for Medicare for all. So I just have to say that was one of the first political jobs that I had.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to actually, we have one last question we're going to sneak in here. We try to keep these short and sweet, coming from our co-founder, Stephanie Taylor.
Great, thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you to everybody for these great questions. And thank you, Attica, for these very thoughtful responses. To everyone in this call, hopefully you saw in this call why we need Attica in Congress. So please do chip into this race if you have a chance. Excuse me. And Attica, I have one last question for you. A lot of us are feeling very concerned right now about the state of democracy, especially after the Republicans in Manchin and Sinema in the Senate blocked the voting rights bill. So what should activists be doing right now to save our democracy? And in Congress, how will you work to rebuild our democracy?
Yes, thank you for that question. Stay hopeful, y'all. Stay hopeful. I mentioned my granny who was 93 when she died last month. She never lost hope. And when I think about that, how dare I lose hope with all that she went through? She fortified me to be able to be in this fight, to be able to go to DC and stand up for every single person on this call and every single person that you know across the country. Continue to be out there in the streets, continue to contact your elected officials, continue to help educate and inform other folks in your networks about the issues that are happening and how they can take action. Continue to show up at the polls, continue to run for office and elect good people to office, because I'm temporary. All of us who serve in office are temporary, no matter what we might think. And we're keeping these seats warm for the next people, the next generation of folks who are going to come after us. So again, continue to stay hopeful. Make sure that, when you see something like elected officials getting arrested because, last night's vote was awful. And so they decided to protest today at the Capitol. Say something, speak up about that. That's an injustice for people to be arrested because they're fighting for our democracy. And if we become silent, then that's when we lose. As long as we keep speaking up and showing out and standing up, we will win. The victory might not come today and it might not come tomorrow, but it will come. And we have to remember that we've had victories over the years. We've had victories over the decades. We don't always lose. We win when we work together, when we stand together, when we show up together across all of our divisions and differences, right? That we can build the beloved community that Dr. King talked about. We begin with conversations like this. We begin with conversations with our neighbors. We begin when we go to the polls and say no more, that we reject what has been and we are building something new.
Yes, all of that. Cheers to that. Attica, I'll tell you folks in the chat, Ellen said, happy to donate $100 to your campaign. Go get him, Attica. So yes, thank you, Ellen. And Attica, I think those were perfect last words to share. But do you have another last thought that you'd like to share? Otherwise, I think you you said it beautifully. But any last thoughts that folks should walk away with as we wrap up for tonight?
Definitely, y'all. If I can run for office, you can run for office too, and we need you, so please do. And I will also say that I saw someone from, this is practical. I saw someone in the chat from North Dakota, send us $5 and then we can say we've got all 50 states. But thank you again to the PCCC for hosting, for everybody who has tuned in, and we are going to power our way to the polls with your help.
Thank you, Attica. Thank you so much for being here tonight, folks. I know how much is vying for your attention. I know how much is going on. So you being here tonight to learn more about Attica, her race, about her as a person, her story, we're really grateful for that. Many folks have already chipped in. Folks are chipping in more after kind of meeting Attica here with us tonight. And sometimes this will be the first time that you're chipping in. So regardless, thank you. We are extremely appreciative. Until the next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive, and keep your eyes out for our next event in the series next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. We can't wait to see you then. Thank you, Attica, and thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, folks. Have a good night. Good night, everyone.